I said I'm ready. We're ready for this one.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How's everybody doing?
Great.
So my speech is about Columbus Day. Should we celebrate Columbus Day? And as a lot of us had learned in grade school, right? We were taught that Columbus discovered America. Okay. From my audience analysis of what you said, 5% of you said we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him, and 15% of you said yes, we should celebrate it. I hope by the time I'm finished this, that the 15% of you that said we should celebrate it will understand why I actually picked this topic. My research has shown me that Christopher Columbus, who we were taught about, isn't really who they said he was. According to USHistory.com, even the most adamant admirers and supporters acknowledge that he was ruthless and racist. I'm going to let you know the truth about my investigation, how it became a federal holiday, and the opposing view to keep Columbus Day right where it is. So, the truth. The truth is, you may have learned that Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492 in the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, and provided for the first time in history that the earth wasn't flat. Actually, he didn't discover America or prove the earth wasn't flat, and there is some questions about the names of his ships that he actually sailed over it. According to USHistory.com, approximately 500 years before Columbus stumbled into the New World, a Viking explorer named Leif Erikson went off course while sailing to from Norway to Greenland, and landed in a place that he called Vinland, which was because there was extensive amount of grapes and vines everywhere. So that's why he called it that. There was evidence of this was eventually dug up by Norwegian archaeologists in the 1960s. Christopher Columbus actually arrived in the Bahamas. He thought he was in the West Indies. Him and his men forced the native people that they found there into slavery. Later, while serving as governor, he allegedly imposed horrible forms of torture on those people, according to Wikipedia.org. According to my audience analysis, out of the 15% of you that said we should celebrate Columbus Day, 10% of you said European colonization is a good thing. Columbus had 4 trips from Spain across the Atlantic, and it changed human history by helping to incorporate what is known as the Columbian Exchange. This was the Atlantic trade exchange of plants, animals, disease, culture, technology, and people between the old and the new world. The new world got wheat, along with bubonic plague, chickenpox, cholera, malaria, measles, and typhoid fever, which decimated the populations of the indigenous people in the Caribbean. Columbus mapped the coasts of Central America and South America, but never actually set foot in North America. And he died thinking he discovered Asia. Now, how this became a federal holiday. The first Columbus Day celebration recorded in the United States was held in New York in 1792 in honor of Italian-American heritage. And it marked that October 12th, 1942, that was the day that supposedly he came to America. That's the day that they wanted to honor, and that they would have this day. According to the American historian David Kennedy, in his book, Freedom from Fear, from 1929 to 1945, Kennedy writes that in 1937, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Congress couldn't take the lobbying from the Knights of Columbus, which was a Catholic group. They wanted a Catholic hero to be recognized, and so they couldn't take it, so he proclaimed that August 12th would become a federal holiday and be deemed Columbus Day. But in 1971, the date was changed to the second Monday in October to make it a 3-day weekend, Kennedy writes. According to Guardian.com, During recent decades, this holiday has been targeted and protested, and some places have changed the name and focus of the holiday. For example, Berkeley, California replaced Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day in 1992 to honor the original inhabitants of the Caribbean islands. In 1989, South Dakota started calling the holiday Native American Day. Alabama celebrates a combination of Columbus Day and American Indian Heritage Day. And Hawaii and the Bahamas call it Discovery Day. So the opposing view. According to Wikipedia.org, it is believed that Columbus was born in Genoa, Italy, though some historians think that he was actually born in Catalonia region of Spain. He sailed from the Spanish crown, and that's because she gave him the money and the ships to do that. His remains are actually now in Spain. Italians in the United States have taken great pride in him and sponsor many celebrations held in his name each year to honor Italian-American heritage. The New York Times article by Christina Karen on October 5th, 2018, Karen quotes Vasile M. Russo, the national president of the Order of Italian Sons and Daughters of America. In the interview, Russo states, to truly understand Columbus's importance, Italian Americans, it's necessary to understand how they were treated upon arriving to this country. Just as Mexican immigrants have been branded as criminals, in past years, Italians, especially dark-skinned Italians from the South, were considered criminals. Russo continues to say that an estimated 4 million Italians that immigrated to the U.S. from 1880 to 1920 that were farmers and laborers fleeing poverty, and in America they encountered religious discrimination, difficult working conditions, and a society that viewed them as inferior and associated with them with organized crime. According to the New York Times article by Christina Karen, in 1891, a mob in New Orleans shot to death and mutilated 11 Italian immigrants. Soon after that, the New York Times had an editorial that described the mob's victims as desperate ruffians and murderers, and they were negatively stereotyped. It just kind of persisted as it went, as time went on. So what happens then is there is a commission developed. It was the U.S. Immigration Commission. It was supposed to be a bipartisan committee, but it ended up being called the Dillingham Commission, named after the chairman, who was a senator from Vermont, and his last name was Dillingham. The commission finished its work in 1911, and basically what they said was certain kinds of criminality are inherent in the Italian race. And due to this report, it caused an outcry and contributed to the Immigration Act in 1924, which set quotas for the amount of people that could actually come into the United States. So Russo said in this article on October 5th, nearly half the immigrants who arrived during the mass migration period in 1880 and 1920 ended up returning to Italy. Those who stayed fought to gain respect, said Russo. Russo stated that Columbus Day is not a day that is set aside in honor to honor an individual, but to rather set aside to recognize and honor a monumental historic event that began the process of over 500 years of worldwide immigration to America by oppressed people seeking better lives for their families, he said. So in closing, there's a lot of information there. In closing, I wish to say to Russo, if it's not a day to celebrate an individual, then why can't we change the name? The truth is that we were taught fallacy. Columbus was a manipulator and coerced the queen of Spain with lies. He never even came to North America. He tortured and enslaved humans. He took part in developing the slave trade with the Columbian Exchange and contributed to the extinction of many tribes due to the disease he brought back from him with his travels. The federal holiday was also given under duress from the Catholics, from the Knights of Columbus, wanting a Catholic to represent their religion. Then the government changes the day, so I guess it wasn't that important to actually have the day that he landed in the Bahamas because they wanted a 3-day weekend. More important, since the 70s, there has been protests about this holiday. Some states, on their own, have changed it, and renamed it and the holiday to embrace the native people that lived in the country before the immigrants from Europe came to change their lives. I would like to add that 85% of my audience analysis stated that we should not celebrate Columbus Day. So to my 15%, in regards to the opposing view, why would a culture be willing to honor someone just because they're Italian and minimize the way he lived? Why would people want to be associated with a demand a federal holiday in his name? Can't we just have an Italian American Day or month? Why promote a group of people with one person? Isn't there another Italian that is more beneficial to his people? And what about the Catholics? They've already gone through so much with the sexual abuse of the priests. I wouldn't want a person like Columbus representing my religion. The Irish were also treated horribly when they migrated to the U.S. So were the Chinese, the Puerto Ricans, the Mexicans, the blacks, and the Jews, and what about the women in this country? We can go on and on. But to allow this man's name on this holiday demonstrates self-centered ignorance at the highest level. We wouldn't have a Hitler Day so that Germans could celebrate German heritage. A U.S. federal holiday that chooses to put the name of a person on it should be a person of honor, not degradation. What I learned was we're able to actually change this by discussing this with our city council members. I actually spoke to one of the commissioners of Bucks County, and she basically shot me down and said that the Italians would never allow us to change that in this area. And that's it.